Hello again. We're back with the non-dual lectionary, and we've reached the third Sunday in Lent of year C. Our reading for this week is Luke chapter 13, verses 1 through 9. I'll start by reading. At that very time, there was some present who told Jesus about the Galileans whose blood Pilate had mingled with their sacrifices. He asked them, "Do you think that because these Galileans suffered in this way, they were worse sinners than all other Galileans? No, I tell you. But unless you repent, you will all perish as they did. Or those 18 who were killed when the tower of Siloam fell on them? Do you think that they were worse offenders than all the other people living in Jerusalem? No, I tell you, but unless you repent, you will all perish just as they did." Then he told this parable. A man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and he came looking for fruit on it and found none. So he said to the man working the vineyard, "See here, for 3 years I've come looking for fruit on this fig tree, and still I find none. Cut it down. Why should it be wasting the soil?" He replied, "Sir, let it alone for 1 more year, until I dig around it and put manure on it. If it bears fruit next year, well and good, but if not, you can cut it down." So, a couple things here. The first one, and I'm gonna focus in on this word, right? Repent, first of all, because that's one where if you grew up in the church context as I did, you probably got a lot of baggage about what that word means. And I think the key to unlocking this whole thing is going back to the original word. This is a translation from Greek, and this is one, the word repent is in Greek metanoia, which literally means something like change your mind, transcend your mind, right? Noia meaning related to the mind, relating to perspective, relating to view, relating to whole take, whole I mean, mind is as good as any. And then meta, we know that one kind of mean, again, transform, transcend, change, something like that. So then as we read through this first part, um, a couple examples of people who died horrible deaths, right? Of people who were treated horribly, died horrible deaths that, our small self would viscerally react against. I don't want that, right? And the lesson with both of them is unless you repent, you will all perish as they did. I do think the perish as they did isn't about like the quality of your death. Like you're going to die. Your separate little self will die. And to the extent that you hear these stories about people dying bad deaths, it doesn't really matter. You're going out no matter what. And so then the message there is unless you repent, you will all perish as they did, right? Unless you transform your mind or transform your identity, unless you transcend your small self, unless you have an identity shift of to what truly is to your true nature, you will die, right? So this is another like when we get that repent word, when we really dig into that original meaning and how that becomes very important, right? Not just unless you do things slightly differently, unless you live a better life, right? Unless you wholly uproot and shift your identity, your perspective, your view, go beyond who you think you are, you will perish. And the really it's you will perish. The you I'm talking to will perish. But there's an uprooting, a transcending that can do something else here. And that relates right to that. I mean, I keep using the word something like true nature, right? Or no self or something, but it's kind of like what fills in its place, right? When you have no self, that no self experience. Um, and I do like that idea of sort of what fills into that gap, right? It isn't another self. It isn't something else that becomes an I that grabs onto, but what fills in? Well, it's experiential is even wrong, right? But it's the louche of it, right? The frothy edge of that is something like recognition of my small self as As like as a wave, I mean the metaphors that get used, right? But as a wave of the ocean, where my true nature is really ocean. Um, so a wave will perish, right? A wave always crests and collapses. Um, but if you can uproot the identity of the wave, the ocean doesn't perish. And then we have this parable with the fig tree planted in the vineyard, and I think at least one way, one nugget, I think that unlocks this one a bit is seeing this as a conversation between one who realizes true nature and one who doesn't. So the man who planted the fig tree in the vineyard doesn't understand true nature, right? Doesn't understand or doesn't see beyond um, beyond apparent reality. And the man working the vineyard does understand something deeper, right? So the man in the fig tree just says, "This tree isn't doing what I thought it wanted to do. Get rid of it," right? Just at face value, this is what I see, and it's not cutting it. Um, I have my preferences. I have what I want to happen. It's not happening, and so let's move on. The man working the vineyard, I think one way of reading this is the man working the vineyard um, sees something deeper than that, right? Sees um, beyond the apparent yes, no, beyond the apparent this doesn't work, this does work. Um, Puts it in terms, is talking to someone that the man in the vineyard even recognizes doesn't get it, right? So talks in terms um, of apparent reality, right? Oh, let it alone for another year and we'll see what happens, right? And you can cut it down then if it isn't what you want. But I think one way of reading this again is that the man working the vineyard is really seeing something that's already there, right? That this tree's true nature is bearing fruit, um, and only in the only in the apparent passage of time is it not meeting the standard right now, right? It is a fruit bearing tree that in its like essence in its true nature is already doing what it does, is already fulfilling everything that it is. Um, and so, uh, the message to the person who can't see that is give it time, right? But the message to all of us is more like, look, what's here, even though you can't see it already, right? Or even though our preferences don't yield the insight into what already is happening or what will be in the future or anything like that, right? The the our trick of what we like now and our trick of being stuck in time and the apparent yes no or the apparent later or now yields to what this is a fruit bearing tree already. It already is what it is, and so the message is just, hey, let it be what it is. Um, but which can only be done, and this is a tricky one, right? But to link between the two, which can only be done, which can only be seen fully from that metanoia, that transformation uh, that we see in the first one, because what apparently is right yields to what truly is once we can transform our mind and see it.